guard. Became obvious to me that we've got some deficiencies when it comes to that. And I think the vast majority of passing half guard is the technical knowledge of what you're trying to accomplish here. So there's some phases of half guard. There's an active offensive half guard, and then there's what you would call more or less a defensive or lockdown style of half guard. And I'm not talking about like the actual lockdown position itself. I'm talking about somebody just holding. So first thing we have to do is we have to make a distinction between what they're trying to do. And there's various styles of half guard. We're going to cover the closed half guard right now and work on the various techniques of clearing that out. And then we'll work on more of the open guard style of that, which would be like your half butterfly, the V-guard style that I use, knee shield variants and all that. Those are still going to be considered half guard variants, but they're very different in their application. Okay, so what tends to give us the problems is when a person actually crosses their legs and they kind of triangle over that outside leg. We find ourselves getting stuck there a lot, and we really don't have an understanding of how best to get out of there. There's a couple of ways here. So first thing you have to do is you have to recognize exactly which one it is that he's using, okay? It's pretty evident, it's pretty obvious. Most of the time, it's just this lock right here. They're gonna lock over on this outside leg, and they're up on their side. Now, another thing that we need to understand is it's always gonna be beneficial to us to try to get him on his back, as opposed to having him up on his side like this and us trying to cut the leg out. Okay, so there's two different variants that we can use here. We can use a sit out / long step, or we can use what we call a knee cut. Okay, now a knee cut can be done across, or it can be done same side that we're on. So we're going to cover the mount variant, and then we're going to cover a cross knee cut for the first one. Okay, so what's important? What's most important here? What's most important?
What if they're locked on the inside? Would it still apply the same way?
If they're
figured forward on their legs, like on the opposite, like if they figure forward on the inside that way, like how and standing on the calf.
They're already on their flat on their back. So I mean, is it going to change things? Yes,
okay.
It'll change some things. So if they have a different lock, what Alba was asking, if they have a different lock in here, yeah, it's going to change things a little bit. This is going to be very rare. We're not going to see this a lot, but yeah, you could see it. We'll cover that in a little bit later time. But yeah, the lock will be, the escape method will be completely different here. So if we're here and they're locked in, for all intents and purposes, you need to understand there's two things that we're trying to do. We're trying to get the underhook, and we're trying to flatten them out. That's really what we want to do. Those are the two base things. If you can remember that when it comes to half guard, you're going to be efficient. You're going to be rocking and rolling right out of the gate. We want the underhook, and we want to flatten this guy out. There's a couple ways that we can do that. Okay, we can flatten them out either with a cross face, or we can flatten them out by walking them across. Now, the two variants that I'm talking about as far as flattening them out, meaning we really need to get this underhook. If he's got half guard and he's staying tied up in here, we want to try to get an underhook so we can kind of start to rotate him to this position right here. We want to get one side kind of turned and get him twisted to where we can start working on escaping this half guard lock, okay? So from right here, one of the first things that we want to try to do is we want to try to get this elbow in a position that's beneficial for us to try to get the underhook. If he remains on his side like this, it's going to be really, really hard to do. So the way I do this is I'm going to come up underneath the head, or I'm going to start working myself up underneath the arm and get a bottom side underhook. Now, a bottom side underhook is easy to chase. And a lot of times, we forget about the power of having a bottom side underhook when it comes to the pre-passing phase of half guard. So if he's not going to let me have this, and he's not actively trying to search for an underhook himself, and he's kind of just keeping this tight and really trying to dig up underneath me, which is what a lot of guys will do, I'm going to have to seek a bottom side underhook to work on it, okay? So if he does seek the high side underhook from right here, now we have to work on getting the high side underhook right out of the gate. Okay, so we're going to work on both variants. First thing we're working on is high side underhook. We want to chase that and get it, okay? What we don't want to do is let his head escape from us, because if I just lift up here and I go right at it trying to get an underhook, he escapes, and now he's setting up another guard. So once we get to this position, it's absolutely imperative that we lock him down in some form or fashion. Now, you guys that were here on all the passing discussion that we had the last time, I told you one of the preemptive positions we were trying to get to right out of the gates was what? To pass. Remember? If you're passing, where do you want to try to get? You want to try to get to half guard. That means you've killed half of his guard. You're now in half guard, all right? So if we can step over and we can lock him into half guard and drop down, that's absolutely fantastic. The problem comes here for most of you guys, that you're not really effective passing right here. So we're already here, and what I'm saying this for is if we let him go, we don't keep him locked to us and start trying to fish an underhook to get some control, we're now locked out of that position that we wanted so bad when we were passing. So we're taking a step back. So if we get him in half guard, we want to keep him there so that we can pass and he can't go offensive from it. All right? So we're in half guard. We've gotten ourselves in a good position, but he's not actively really trying to go offensive. He just fishes a high side underhook. So as soon as he gets the high side underhook, one of the first things that I want to do is I want to get him locked to me so that I can somehow start to fish this underhook underneath him, but I don't want to give him any space really to work, okay? So what I do first is I start to kind of work myself around and let him kind of have that underhook, but I'm going to start to work myself around enough to where I can flare up underneath and I can just cradle the head. As long as I can cradle the head, that means his head can't back away from me when I start to come inside and fish my underhook. Now I'm going to have to create some space. So this leg being up under here, my left leg, I'm going to push my left leg and I'm going to put it on top of his bottom side knee. Okay, so I'm putting my foot in here on his bottom side knee. That's going to prevent his bottom side knee from riding high and climbing up any higher than he already is. He's already got the underhook. What I don't want him doing is if I stay right here like this, he can loft me up over and he can start to kind of get deeper up underneath me and start to work out. Okay? So once I shoot myself kind of over this side, I'm going to try my best to get my foot in here and block this high side knee. This pretty much guarantees me that he's not going to climb that guard up any higher. All right? Now I'm going to catch up under this backside head. If I can't get up underneath the knee, I'll show you here in just a second a way that we're going to fix this. Now I'm going to try to lock his head. From right here, I'm going to bring the hand back inside. I'm going to start trying to fish a high side underhook. Now once I catch my high side underhook, now I can start to push off of that knee and I can really climb up high and get him all flattened out. Now I'm going to walk on over. I let go of that high side knee and I walk him over as far over as I possibly can to the opposite side. Okay? From here I'm going to switch my grips. If I can possibly get here, that's fine. If I can come up under here, this is fine too. Okay? Head is going to come down. I'm going to tripod up. From here, I get the apex of my knee through and I start to drag my leg across. Okay, now I'm going to cut up underneath. So what's the most important aspect of this? Some of us are going to be able to tripod up higher than others. Okay? Most important part of this is to remember the knee. Apex of the knee has to come through the half guard. So once I feel the tip of my knee come through, the knee line is controlled. That's the mass point of control for him. As long as I can get my knee line through, my lower leg will pivot. I'm good. It's when I don't get my knee line through, lock down really hard. And I start trying to pull this way that I can't twist, okay? But once my knee comes through, for purposes of demonstration, lock and hold, I can't do anything twisting here. But once the knee comes through, now I can do everything I want to do. So all I need to clear is the knee line. The foot will come later. Everybody always says, well, what do I do about the foot? The foot gets caught. You know, yeah, it's shaped like an L. It's a big hook. He catches it. And then I get stuck invariably right here. I'm just yanking the heck out of it. We'll fix that. I'll show you in just a minute. We can fix that. Okay? So again, half guard. I'm here. All right? I'm going to walk around. And I bring the head into the back of my tricep. Why? Does a couple things. If I stay here, he can climb an offset. Okay? His head can pop out. He can take the back. Okay? We don't want that. So once I come over here, he can have that underhook, but once I come around and I put my head right behind his neck, now I can start to maneuver my lower body a little bit away from him. Now I can twist in this half guard and I can kind of eliminate some of this underhook, give myself an ability to get under it. So from here I rock, foot goes on the apex of the knee. Okay, so from here, now I can come back around. If I want to stay here and fight the underhook, I can. That's fine. I've got a lock right here. If he tries to duck his head up underneath it, I just shuck my elbow down. Okay? Or I'm okay with you catching and dropping to your elbow. It's a little bit less balance, I feel like, but you can go either way. So you can stay here. Nope. Turn your elbow in. If he tries to pop the head out or if he tries to go away, we can drop the elbow behind, keep him pinned underneath. Okay? He can't climb, he can't back away. Knee is locked, head is locked, or I can come here. For this purpose, this demonstration, I'll put the hand here. First one, I use the control of the head. So if I'm here, I'm gonna lift, feed the hand inside, coming up underneath. Now I'm gonna come at the crown of the head, not necessarily across the chin. This is something that you gotta think about, guys. If you try to come way up underneath the chin, how much harder is it to open him up than it is if I just cradle his head like a football and just open it this way? It's the highest point of the head. Around the forehead, it's much easier to open him up, okay? Open him up. Lock, okay? Now from right here, I can go high risk control, I can go X grip, but the main thing I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna start to shuffle across. Okay? Get him turned as far the opposite direction as I possibly can. Now I'm gonna switch, neck control on the far side, head is gonna go down, butt goes way up until the apex of the knee comes, and then I twist through, and he's gonna hang on to that foot. Hang on to it best you can. Here, I'll give it to you a little bit more. Yeah. He's gonna hang on to this foot as best he possibly can. I want you guys to get to this position where you feel the tension in your foot and the difficulty getting your foot out, okay? So notice I got a high side underhook right here. I'm controlled, I'm high, his elbows are both above his head. Hard for him to move, all right? All I gotta do is use this foot to pry it out here in just a minute, and I'll show you how to do it. We got it? Here we go, 1, 2, 3. Just a minute.